Well, hello there and welcome back to my channel. Today we're revisiting this guy, the Diatone Roma 4-inch long range frame build that we did. Original video appearing here now. If you want to look at that, we looked at all the parts and everything else and my reasoning behind some of the parts. So we said we were going to come back when we'd done a flight, and we've done a flight with it, and it flew really nicely. I was really impressed with the flying characteristics, how it handled, how it flew, everything about it really. A few little niggles and annoyances, but for the most part I'll say this build is a success, which is good. We ran the slightly larger motors, and as we thought, that did affect flying time. I mean, on this particular battery here, the 1300 mAh 4S, we're getting about 6 minutes of flight, and on this guy here, the 850 4S, we were getting around about 4.5 minutes of flight time, and that was mounted with a Gopro Hero 7 without a battery inside, and to power it we used this guy here, so that saved us some weight by powering it directly from the Lipo, and that sort of connects the balance lead, and that then connects to the GoPro and then powers the GoPro. So you've got to remember not to pull this plug out until you've hit stop record and turn the GoPro off, otherwise you could corrupt the files perhaps and cause issues there. So you've got to remember to turn it off before you unplug it. But apart from that, worked really well. And then we just use this cage here, which is just a generic kind of GoPro cage that comes with the GoPro. So that fit quite nicely onto this part here, that you can see. So move that to one side. As we said, really impressed, flew really well. Motors are a bit large, so we didn't get the economy we wanted, but they handled really well. You could feel that sort of power there, even with that weight. Quite a heavy quad, but even with the weight of the GoPro and the larger Lipo on it, it flew really nicely. You could tell the difference between the 1300 mAh and the 850, but obviously the 850 gets you less of a flight time. I was a bit concerned because these motors are quite notchy, as you can probably see there, that they would get some vibrations along the quite skinny arms, and that would affect the flight control and we get some funny issues. But I was happy to say that didn't happen. It flew really nicely, really smoothly, and it hasn't really got a tune on it. I used this all-in-one flight control in another build, and I did a bit of a tune on that, and I didn't do anything with this, and it flew really nicely with barely any prop wash with some of the flying we did later on, but we'll get to that later in the video. So really happy with that. The it's like the ESC Triangle DVR, whatever it's called, VTX and DVR. I didn't put a card in it to get some DVR footage, but that was okay. Wasn't great on the signal, not going very far away, and started to get some breakup and things, but that could just be, you know, not great quality DVR, VTX even. So if you've got a much better VTX, you probably would get a lot more satisfactory range out of this, and getting a decent signal. Obviously if you ran it with the HD system, which is probably what most people are thinking, you'd certainly get good range out of that and good picture quality out of that, with no props in view from this camera here because of the dead cat style. So if you decided to forgo a GoPro and just run it in HD to get your footage, then the digital HD system wouldn't see any props in view, so you get some nice footage from that camera if you decided to go that way. But I'm still with Analogue here at the moment. Can't quite justify the cost of buying a digital HD system and then putting in all my quads. That would be a lot of money, probably double the amount of money that I've already spent on my quads and stuff. So I'm really not there at the moment, but maybe in the future, see how prices go and things like that. Running it with a Ghost system, impresses as usual. Really good system. Worked really nicely, excellent range, no problem for what I want it for. The way that it's been for me, it's been really good, worked really well. I know some people, well, want Tracer or they want to stay with Crossfire. Well, that's fair enough. I run Crossfire as well and other quads and builds, and that runs really well, really impressed. And Ghost being such a new system, you think, oh well, it's got some bugs and stuff, and it has got some bugs and stuff, but it's really impressive and works really well. I've not had any issues at all with that particular system, the 2.4 gigahertz system that runs on the Ghost. So really impressed with that as well. Not so impressed with the BM180 GPS system. Couldn't get a lock on satellite. Got the elements in the OSD, so I know that the flight controller is seeing the GPS receiver, the unit there, but didn't get a single satellite in all the flying that I was doing, so I might have to have a play around with that. If you have any tips or hints in running a GPS system, well, stick that in the comment section below. That would be really helpful. Appreciate that, because it's the first time I've set up a GPS system with a quad, and yeah, it's a little bit awkward, but obviously not getting a satellite signal is a bit of a pain in the neck. I know that the 180 is not the best, and I might swap that over for a 220 in the future, and with some of the other newer satellite receivers, GPS receivers that are coming onto the market now, that seem to be quite impressive. So we'll see about that in the future perhaps. But that's some improvements. But apart from that, flew really nicely, really well. And hopefully you've been seeing some flight footage while I've been talking of me just cruising about. Nothing too spectacular, particularly just a nice cruising about, which is really all you want this for. I'm not really designed for some acro, but I did do some acro. At the end, I used this guy here, another 1300 milliamp 4S. Took off the camera cage, just run it as it was, clicked on the DVR, and yeah, did really well. All the sort of maneuvers you want to do, flies really nicely. It was a bit of a breeze, but handled the weather quite well. 4-inch, flew really well, did all the kind of stuff that you might want to do, power loops and all that sort of nonsense. So this can handle a little bit of, let's say, light acro without the camera and everything, the extra weight on, and flew really nicely. Even though it's not really designed as an acro frame, it flew really well, and so I'm really happy with that. So at the end of this video, we'll just put some of that footage on there for you to see as well. Just some of me flying about and doing some simple acro maneuvers. I'm not a great pilot, but I can do those maneuvers and things like that, so you can have a look at that, and that gives you an idea about this build and what it can and what it can't do. So I hope you found this informative. Appreciate you spending your time watching my content. The video that covered this had loads and loads of views, and I'm really happy with everyone who's watched that video and seems to like the build and appreciate it. So thanks a lot for that, guys. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate you spending your time watching my content. That's been really nice of you to give a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel as well. Appreciate that. And as we say for this one, perhaps if you want to, maybe hit that thumbs up, and if you want to as well, click subscribe. But don't put out too much content. But what I do, I hope, is at least informative and helpful for you as you're making decisions. You can get some advice from perhaps me, and then look at other YouTubers as well, people who are making content, what they have to say, and then with that research and that information, then you can get a better idea about whether or not a certain product is for you, whether you can get some use out of it or not. So there you go. I'll leave you with some footage of me doing some flying about. As I said, flew really nicely, and flew for at least 9 minutes doing that acro stuff. Flew for ages. It's ridiculous. It just kept going and going. In the end, I got bored and had to just land. But there you go. So thanks so much for watching again, and perhaps I'll catch you in a video in the future. Take care. Bye bye.